necessarily those of the station or its management.
You are about to undertake a 2-hour experience of eye-opening, mind-expanding, revealing common sense discussion for the common sense citizen. Strap yourself in, put your trays in the upright position, remove dentures and loose jewelry, get comfortable, take a deep breath, and come along for the ride. It is time for the Joe Mangiacotti Show on Powerhouse Station WCRN 830, and our affiliates and streaming on the TuneIn app. It's Joe time, baby.
All right, folks, good morning. Good morning, and welcome to the Saturday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here on AM 830 WCRN, as well as our affiliate stations, AM 730 WACE in the western part of the state. And, of course, we are live streaming on the TuneIn app. Just punch in WCRN, and you can take us anywhere. You can tell Alexa, hey, play WCRN, and she'll do that with no questions asked. You can follow us on our social media platforms at Joe Mangi Show. That's M-A-N-G-I, Joe Mangi Show. And we're live streaming on my Facebook page at Joe Mangi Show. That's right. Now, there is a camera in the studio, but the important thing is that the audio is there. So you have multiple ways to listen to us on terrestrial radio and streaming online in one way or another. You can also join the conversation at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. We have our text line up and running. That is 617-297-8388. Just like you text your buddy to go out for a beer, do it the same way. 617-297-8388. If you can't text, but you can email, if you email Text Joe on the radio exactly what you're doing at gmail.com, all one word, it appears on the same screen in real time, and we should be able to respond to it. And don't forget, if you want to reach out to the show off air, and a lot of you like to send materials or suggestions, sometimes suggestions that aren't that nice, that's okay. You can either use the Messenger app, which a lot of you do on the Facebook, that's fine. But you can also email the show, and the official email for the show is just JoeMShow at gmail.com, or give us a call at the office, 508-603-9778. So here we are from the Box Drop Middlesex Mattress Outlet Studios. I'm Joe Mangiacotti, in with me for, because it is the second Saturday, and that's typically when we do this, Jerry Doherty. Good morning. Welcome.
Good morning, Joe Mangiacotti, and good morning, everybody out there on this Saturday morning, April 10th.
You know, people are used to hearing you Monday through Friday from 11 to noon for Making Money Last, now in your 8th year, and you're having a good time doing that. Recently, you went from the Political Thursdays we did to Political Thursdays on Thursday, but 10 to 11 right before Making Money Last. How's that going?
Good. That's going very well, Joe. So I do my regular retirement planning program, Making Money Last, Monday through Friday from 11 to noon. But then on Thursdays, we've carved out a separate hour from 10 to 11 right before my retirement planning program for Political Thursdays. And you join me every other Thursday. We have a Holly Robichard from the Howie Carr Show joining us every Thursday, and then you're every other Thursday, and we conquer all of the problems that are out there, kind of the interchange.
Listen to us. Yeah. We'd be all set. We'd solve all of the ills of the world, Jerry.
We do. We solve all the world's problems. The interchange, no, truly, between politics, the economy, your pocketbook, which is very important, of course, and the world that we're going to leave for our children. You know, what
which
are
is
we
really
doing
the
here?
thing. Right?
Which is really the thing.
I mean, because everything we're borrowed, that's saying, right, we don't inherit it, we just borrow it for our children. And everything, I mean, most of us in the studio today, most of us, not all of us, are on the other side of the hill. And it's not so much what we're going to see happen with our country and in the world as it is our children and our children's children are going to have to live in what this world is we're creating today.
The older you get, the more precious time becomes. Yeah. And the more you think about those things, that, you know, we are only custodians of everything that we have. You know, the house that I live in, Joe, you've been to my house. Mm-hmm. My house, there's a section of my house that's 200 years old, 1820.
That's the west wing or the east wing?
and that really makes you think. You know, sometimes I go out there and on one of our chimneys, it has, you know, 1820. It actually has the year the house is built. And I think, I am not really the owner of this home.
No.
I'm only the temporary custodian, for 20 or 25 years, and that's about it.
And that's something that we have here in New England is homes that were built hundreds of years ago. And
Right.
some of these have been in the same family, right, that passed down. And it's funny because in the real estate business, which I've been in for years, when it comes to the title part of it, right, the research, it's so important because there's actually homes that there's been no title. It's just been transferred, in family through trust and so forth. So nobody has actually done a deed for 180 years,
Yeah, it's
And of course, back then, Jerry, it was, Mr. Brown's farm and walk 120 paces to the oak tree, and then the property goes back, 10 cow lengths or something, right? So they have to figure this all out. But over the years, they did actual, I don't know, what would you call it, surveying, right, and get a little closer on that. But anyway, we kind of digress. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. And just one more thing, people should understand that your actual day job is Boston Independence Group, and
Yes.
you're right down the street.
Yep.
And just tell everybody exactly, because you're highly specialized in this area, and that's why you're the best in it.
Joe, you are so kind. You really are. And I would like to
Checks
believe
in
that
the mail,
everything you
right?
said is true. Trying to be a little bit modest here. Yes, we're a very specialized financial service firm. All we deal in is the unique concerns of people who are close to retiring or maybe even perhaps just retired. All we do is build retirement plans for people.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
There
So
you go.
highly specialized.
All right. All right, folks. So we're going to, we got a lot to cover today. And again, 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Our text line is 617-297-8388. And, as we watched as the news, both printed and electronics, selected what the news was and what was fact and wasn't fact to us, we saw the never-ending coverage of news stories like the Russian collusion and the literal editing and airing of Donald Trump speaking of the good people on both sides of the monument and statue argument, not the white supremacists. Yes, to the extent of cutting the footage of him reiterating and condemning white supremacy. Yes, because he knew that the biased, slanted, high-minded mainstream media was going to make every effort to position him in the worst possible light. Now, going after politicians and asking tough questions and digging into their backgrounds and anywhere there was even a hint of shadiness or backroom deals, but it used to be across the board. All politicians were treated the same way. They were all fair game. That's how Johnny Carson did it. Then the man who was never supposed to be elected got elected. The man who is known the world over from all sorts of people, from Hollywood types to everyday blue-collar workers, wanted to meet and hang with him, but he dared beat the chosen one, the one who was ordained to be the first female president. Then he spoke the truth, the plain truth, the obvious truth, the truth we were told was not fact. We realized we had to dig elsewhere for the facts. We knew that the mainstream media was the essence of who are you going to believe, us or your lying eyes. The words written in George Orwell's 1984 have never been so unnerving as they are today. There was truth and there was untruth. And if you clung to the truth, even against the whole world, you were not mad. Although from the pages of a fictional book, they are nonetheless true. You are not mad, regardless of what the left woke tell you. Just because you are not part of the hive thought process here doesn't mean that you are evil or should be on a list or rounded up for re-education camps. We are told that everything and everyone is racist, that the systemic racism is everywhere from our legal system to even our highways, that racism is now weaved into our transportation system and highways should be rerouted after existing right where they are for decades. What would the consequences of that move be today? We watched with our own eyes the burning, looting, and assaults all summer long, and the answer was to tear down our statues and monuments, with no thought or debate, but with mob mentality and sometimes in the dark of night. Why was this so important? As Frank Gallagher on The Shameless said, well, he pointed out, you can't cancel history, it already happened. So why the erasing of anything that reminded us of where we've come from and how far we have come? Why the rewriting of history, again, from our Orwellian teachings? Who controls the past controls the future. Who controls the present controls the past. And those that control the present, the Biden administration, and the invisible hands truly at the rudder, are now telling us that everything is infrastructure, not just the systems and tangible things we have always understood to be our infrastructure. So everything is now fair game. And the left feels they have a license to reshape our country and eventually the world to their idea of utopia. But that pesky thing we call the Constitution and the Bill of Rights that has always been an obstacle to the left, except when it served to assist them, are moving to cancel those sacred documents. And some of the evidence we are seeing, Biden is now rolling out a set of executive orders on gun control while telling us, quote, no amendment is absolute, while maintaining that nothing he is recommending impinges on the Second Amendment. The thing I was taught from the earliest age was an absolute, as man-made government written documents by the people could be. Biden is asking the Justice Department within a month to propose a rule to stop ghost guns, which are just kits people can buy legally and then fully assembled to create a functioning firearm that doesn't have a serial number. Now, with police departments being defunded and record resignations and retirements happening with no replacing graduating classes, the ranks of police departments across the nation are dwindling, and the crime rates are skyrocketing. Just in the recent past, we had a Capitol police officer murdered while on duty by a follower of Islam radicalized by the teachings of Farrakhan. No outrage, no demonstration, not really a lot of airtime spent on this one in comparison. Then a Syrian national who killed 10 people at a grocery store in Boulder, Colorado. The authorities tell us he was known to federal agents, and with acquaintances and family members telling law enforcement that he suffered from bouts of mental illness that included paranoia and outbursts of rage. Yet the weapon is to blame, not the man. Then a former NFL player, for no apparent reason except continuous blows to the head on the gridiron, killed a beloved doctor and his wife, grandparents, grandchildren, and even a repairman who just happened to be there working, and he left the other workman fighting for his life. This horrific action has no reasoning or obvious motive. And a Texas gunman kills one and wounds 6, including a trooper, after entering his place of work. His motive is still under investigation. And right on cue, with no hesitation, those that want to disarm the American citizen in direct conflict with the Second Amendment go after guns. The guns that law-abiding citizens who follow the laws exist every day without incident. There are over 600 million guns in the United States and 12 billion rounds of ammunition. If the mere fact of being a gun owner was a problem, we'd know it. We'd have bodies strewn all over the streets. But we don't. Because despite what is drilled into us by the mainstream media and the progressive elite, who, by the way, may not own or carry a firearm themselves, but their private security does, that most of us who own and carry firearms for personal protection and that of their families are good, decent people who pay their taxes and follow the law. So any new laws, restrictions, or executive orders will only affect them, not the mentally unstable or the criminal element. Outlaw guns, and only outlaws will have guns. And the only good thing, or rather the only thing that will stop a bad person with a gun is a good person with a gun. Meanwhile, cities like D.C. and Detroit, with the crime rates at 152% higher than the national average, have multiple shootings and murders every weekend. Yet why are they not taking care of that problem? Why aren't Hollywood elite and the progressive super politicians not directly attacking the criminals who commit the crimes, but the gun itself? What is the end game here? Meanwhile, our border is beyond a crisis, despite the administration's reluctance to use the term. A crisis doesn't even begin to describe the atrocities happening as a direct result of the administration's policies and reversal of policies of the previous administration. The Biden administration proposed $52 billion for the Department of Homeland Security this coming year, holding the current spending level roughly flat, even as a surge of immigrants, many of them unaccompanied children seek to enter the U.S. at the southern border. The proposal comes as the White House grapples with the influx of immigrants trying to enter and struggles with how to house them once they're here. U.S. Customs and Border Protection encountered more than 172,000 people trying to enter the country illegally in March alone. That's up from 100,000 in February and 72,000 in January. Now we're spending at least $60 million per week to house the more than 16,000 migrant minors in our care, which amounts to $3.1 billion annually if it continues at this rate. But it's expected to increase, so will that $3.1 billion number. This exceeds the annual small business fund by more than 4 times. There are over 1,300 children being held at a migrant facility in Texas, where there are multiple allegations of sexual abuse and assault. So after the horrors of the trek to get to the borders of this great nation, they are then subjected to even more horrors and insecurity. White House mouthpiece Jen Psaki stated that while these allegations will be investigated, there is no reason to close the facility where they stem from. And hold on, and now latest here from the CDC, the newest threat to public health, racism. Dr. Rochelle Walensky has declared racism a serious public health threat, and that's important, folks. It's on their website. She wrote it. You can go read it. It says, what we know is this. Racism is a serious public health threat that directly affects the well-being of millions of Americans. As a result, it affects the health of our entire nation. Racism is not just the discrimination against one group based on the color of their skin or their race or ethnicity, but the structural barriers that impact racial and ethnic groups differently to influence where a person lives, where they work, where their children play, and where they gather in a community. So you see, the very meaning of the words are being changed right in front of your eyes. Remember when Webster changed in real time its definition of sexual preference to include the word offensive, as Democrats slammed Supreme Court nominee Judge Amy Coney Barrett for using the term at the Senate confirmation hearings. So we should have known what was to come. One final quote from 1984. Don't you see that the whole aim of Newspeak is to narrow the range of thought? In the end, we shall make thought crime literally impossible, because there will be no words in which to express it. And that's where we're headed, to redefine words and to make it impossible to use words that the left and the woke don't want us to. And Jerry, that will narrow our thoughts. Any feedback on that?
No, words.
I know that was a lot. I just
It was, Joe, that was very well done. I mean, you really did. You outlined a lot. You let me kind of unpack a few of these things. First of all, on words. I mean, words have meanings. And a lot of these words are being twisted. And it all started, remember, years ago with Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky, when he asked, it all depends upon what the word is means. That's kind of the genesis for a lot of this. All depends upon what the word is means. These things get so obscure. And this is when you have these people who are more academics who are involved in government than a real world people, understanding that there are bad people out there who want to kill us. There are bad people who want to undermine the United States and so on. But they live very much in an academic world. They live in a bubble in Washington, D.C. And it's emblematic of what's going on in Washington right now, that they would want to parse the meanings of words. What does infrastructure really mean? We all know what the word infrastructure means. And it doesn't mean a lot of the spending that's in that infrastructure bill, which is one of the points that you touched on, Joe. So words are very, very important. And I'd like to get back to, Will Rogers type of politicians, not that he was a politician, but Will Rogers type of politicians, just plain spoken, Mark Twain type of politicians, plain spoken, that are giving us the unbridled, the unblemished truth in proposals that they're putting out there.
Absolutely. All right, folks, 508-871-7000. Join the conversation from the Box Drop Middlesex Mattress Outlet Studios. I'm Joe Mangiacotti, along with Jerry Doherty in studio. Of course, Steady Goodpup's hanging out. We're going to hear a new candidate for Find a Forever Home will be aired a little later today. So I think Murphy is his name. He needs a home. Flying the board, of course, Russ, we're, a month out from your birthday now? I don't know why that's still a topic, but that's fantastic. You look wonderful. You look marvelous.
Thank you so much, Joe. And Jerry, good morning to you. I always look forward to seeing you every month as well when you come in, so it's nice to see another friendly face, familiar face.
Everybody gets excited when they see you, Jerry.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Russ. Those are nice comments. And happy belated birthday. I know on Facebook I did give you a birthday greeting, but yeah, it's always good to see you, Russ. I don't see you often enough.
And I appreciate that, and I thank you. And I surprised my wife when I was telling her what's going on, and I said, "You remember Jerry from the radio station?" And at first she said no, but then I said, well, he asked how you were doing, so it's not like my wife is left out of the conversation or anything. I'm glad that she
don't ever leave the wife out of the conversation.
Exactly, and because Jerry's had the opportunity to meet my wife a long time ago, and
I remember.
And later on this year, in fact, next month, our anniversary will be coming up, and will be 17 years for my wife and I for being married.
That's awesome. Folks,
awesome.
Before I get to the phones and we move on, I just want to, and I don't know if you may have heard it, listeners out there, but if many of you who have been listening to this time slot for the 14 years it's been on, when it started out as Conservatively Speaking with Mike Wade and myself, Bob Hokanson, who was a talk show host here on SRS, TAG, he produced this show. He used to join Mike and I on a regular basis. He was absolute expert in the Civil War. Him and Mike could talk endlessly about and it was an incredible history lesson to listen to the conversation. But he has passed away this past a week ago, Friday, and he's been laid to rest yesterday. So for those of you that remember Bob, we did lose him. He lost his battle with cancer after 10 years of fighting very hard. And he'd come back and join us on the air for a while, and then have to fight again and get sick and leave and come back. So a lot of you have followed that, but I just wanted to pay some respects to Bob Hokanson and say he's definitely be missed, especially at this station, and to all of you who have listened to him over the years. 508-871-7000. Let's jump to Scott in Florida, who wants to talk about taking away guns. Is that a yay or a nay, Scott?
I am against that. They want to take away our guns. Mr. Mangiacotti, and they've already taken away our speech. You just said a moment ago how they're changing words. We're in a crossroads in this country. Let's be honest. We're communists. They want to take us to a communist country. We're on the road there now. And, George Soros funds a lot of this. What gets me angry is, tell me, he funds Antifa and Black Lives Matter, and they go after the protesters they call insurrectionists on January 6th, Proud Boys, Oath Keepers. They go after them. All this right wing or whatever. But do you notice one thing? Do you ever hear left wing? Do you ever hear them say the words left wing violence or left wing ideology? Do you ever hear them say that?
Well, Scott, one of the problems is we have politicians, not just talking heads on the left, who actually say that Antifa is just an idea, that it's not actually a thing. Yet it is, in fact, an organization, and a well organized and pretty well funded organization. So Antifa is not just an idea. And as far as, there's Black Lives Matter, and there's the movement, which I don't think anybody could really have a problem with the movement, which is about equality and eliminating racism. That's a great movement. But then there's BLM, the organization, which that's the one that I have some problems with, and what their mission is and how they go about it. As I said in my opening, is for last summer, Jerry, right? We watched in our own eyes this looting, and even in Portland, it's still going on today. Last night, the night before, they're still setting courthouse on fire, and they're still, setting up autonomous zones. This is still going on, except the media, as usual, is not doing their job. If the media was not concerned with narratives and political sides, they would cover the facts, just the facts, ma'am. Remember that? Dragnet? And it was a Dragnet, right?
Yes.
And Joe Friday and all those, just the facts, ma'am. And that's what media's function is. That's what they're supposed to. They're supposed to just give us what the news is. They're supposed to check the politicians, but they don't. And we see this glaring favoritism and how it works, even with the coverage of Hunter Biden, who now is the son of the sitting president. But we find out that any of these, a lot of the Hunter Biden story that wasn't told before the election, if it was told, it could have seriously affected the outcome, because surveys had shown, and these are, Rasmussen and legitimate pollsters who checked that. Hey, if you had known this, would that affect it? And we're talking about a serious number of people might have changed their vote if the story about the laptop and Hunter Biden wasn't squashed. The New York Post tried to put out, and then the big tech company squashed it. Scott, thank you very much for your call. Always appreciate it. Real quick, before we have to go to break, let's jump to Mark in Worcester. Good morning, Mark. You want to talk about the Marine Corps? What's up with
the first thing I wanted to put out there was I wanted to give a shout out to a good morning to Radio Free America and to all the occupied territories. Sounds like something out of Red Dawn, doesn't it?
Exactly out of Red Dawn. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. Remember that line from Red Dawn?
Yeah.
Yeah, the freedom fighters.
And the chair's got 3 broken legs. Now, about the Marine Corps, I'm listening to Channel 5 News this morning. Not exactly what you would call a left-leaning media organization. If you listen to Janet Wu and Ed Harding. That being said, they put out a story that United States Marine Corps, 38.8, probably more like 40%, shall we say, maybe 40% plus, are refusing to take the COVID-19 vaccination shot.
Really?
Isn't that interesting?
Well, there's actually a point I want to make on that. But, Mark, I'm going to ask you to hold on, because the clock is the clock. I can't control it. We have to take a quick break here at 6:30. We'll be back on the other side with Jerry Doherty from the Box Drop Middlesex Mattress Outlet Studios. I'm Joe Mangiacotti. Stick with us, folks. Hey folks, Joe Mangiacotti here, and I have recently purged and refreshed with new furniture and, most importantly, a new bed. We spend about a third of our life on our mattresses, and it's so vital we have the right one, and we don't break the bank to do that. I first bought a mattress from the big store the brothers used to own, and a power base that moved the head and feet, and then I met John, and I checked out his showroom at 50 Main Street in Ashland and online at boxdropmiddlesex.com, and ended up with a better mattress, a power base that also heats and massages, all for less than half of what I was going to spend at the other place. Box Drop is a discount mattress store, and John specializes in clearance and closeouts, and he buys directly from the manufacturer with a low overhead and just family employees, passing the savings on to you, and you can see it reflected in the price every day. Click boxdropmiddlesex.com or call John on his cell. This is his cell number, 508-579-9303. That's 508-579-9303. And you can find John on Facebook at Box Drop Middlesex. John loves referrals, and this is the best referral I've given so far this year. Dropboxmiddlesex.com.
This is Sean Burke, president of the Licensed Private Detectives Association of Massachusetts, asking you to visit us at lpdam.org when you think you need a private investigator. Don't let your emotions negatively affect your future. Get your answers through a Massachusetts licensed private investigator. Get the facts without risking your credibility by unknowingly committing a criminal offense. You need a license to perform investigations in Massachusetts. What are some types of work that requires a license? Any type of surveillance, interviewing someone for a third party, background and asset checks, are just a few examples. For more on this, visit us at lpdm.org and tune into AM 830 WCRN Sunday mornings at 7:30 for case files from the LPDM or anytime at lpdmcasefiles.com.
We know why you're awake. Your child is about to get their driver's license. Levante's Auto School offers 1-week driving programs to help make sure your child stays safe and focused behind the wheel.
877 Drive Ed. Who's Ed?
That's the number for Levante's Auto School.
Learn to drive safely and efficiently. Visit one of our 5 locations throughout Massachusetts. Click Levante'sAutoSchool.com.
Levante's Auto School shows you how to learn the rules and keep your cool. 877 Drive Ed.
Who's Ed? That's the number for Levante's Auto School.
It's time to go out with Joe.
Welcome to this edition of Out with Joe, brought to you by Nothing Bun Cakes in White City Plaza in Shrewsbury. I'm Joe Mangiacotti, and on this week's Out with Joe, well, we look at Hollywood once again as it descends on Worcester. 2-time winning Sexiest Man Alive, a.k.a. George Clooney, has been in Worcester along with Ben Affleck to film Amazon Studios' The Tender Bar, a film by Pulitzer Prize-winning writer J.R. Moehringer's memoir, which recalls the writer's life growing up on Long Island and searching for a father figure among patrons of his uncle's bar in the 80s. Clooney is also the director of this movie. In addition to Worcester, Clooney and company have been seen in Watertown and Lowell to recreate the neighborhoods of 1980s New York. American Horror Story, Lily Rabb and Ty Sheridan, who were on the set on Lowell Friday, along with Ben Affleck, are starring in this Amazon Studio film. The movie script was written by Dorchester native William Monahan, who won an Oscar for The Departed. In other news, Worcester Restaurant Group owners Rob and Madeline Alquist have operated the family business for more than 40 years, opening the sole proprietor, 111 Chop House, and Via Italian Table together. The owners of the Worcester Restaurant Group are passing the torch down to the next generation as they name their daughter, Caitlin Carolan, as president. As president, she will be responsible for directing and overseeing the operations, marketing, and financial aspects of the 3 restaurants. She served as the chief operating officer of Worcester Restaurant Group prior to being named president. The Alquist said they will continue to be involved in the strategic planning and ongoing development of the culture and customer care and hospitality experience. Well, a big surprise for a group of restaurant workers as their boss gave them a hefty bonus. The employees of the Heinz Restaurant Group, based on the South Shore, thought they were attending a staff meeting about the upcoming summer season. Instead, they were surprised with bonuses totaling $100,000. The money will be split between employees of 3 of the restaurants that the group owns. For more on dining and entertainment, click outwithjoe.com and follow us on social media at OutWithJoe. Out with Joe has been brought to you by Nothing Bun Cakes in White City Plaza in Shrewsbury, on Facebook at Nothing Bun Cakes Shrewsbury. Have you heard of the hottest new bakery around? I know you heard about it right here. My friend Al has opened Nothing Bundt Cake in the White City Plaza in Shrewsbury. Nothing Bundt Cake is a bakery chain and is locally owned and operated by my friend Al. They have bundt cakes ranging from bite-sized to tiered, plus platters, candles, and cards. For any occasion, function, or just to have around the house or office, stop by and check them out. Everything is baked from scratch and on site. Nothing beats a sweet surprise. And until you try one of Al's bundt cakes, you haven't tried a real bundt cake. Stop by and ask for Al. Tell him Joe told you to stop by. 98 Boston Turnpike, White City Plaza near Planet Fitness, Shrewsbury, and on Facebook as well, Nothing Bundt Cake Shrewsbury.
To join the conversation, call 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. Now, here's your host, Joe Mangiacotti.
All right, folks, welcome back to the second half of the first hour of the Joe Mangiacotti Show from the Dropbox Middlesex Mattress Studio Outlet. And, of course, you can join us at 508-871-7000, our text line at 617-297-8388. Jerry Doherty in studio, as he is usually on the second Saturday of every month, as he takes his break from Making Money, last heard Monday through Friday, 11 to 12 noon, right here at AM 830 and its affiliate. And now, on the Thursdays at 10, you can join him for Political Thursdays. And me every other week with him. And as again, you tackle the issues. And there is a intersection of politics in your money, and that's something that you've, whether you were vocal about it all these years or not, it was something you were conscious of. Because when you do planning, you got to think about that, right, Jerry?
Absolutely.
What's going to be happening?
Yeah, everybody realizes that, there are a couple of things that affect markets. Number one, they're random, events, geopolitical events that can certainly affect markets. And if you look at the history of the Dow or any other index, you will see that it generally tracks events that have happened in U.S. History. And then on top of that, though, and this is really the big concern today, is policy coming out of Washington, D.C., where are tax rates going, the future capital gains rates, corporate tax rates, and so on. That's really going to affect markets over the next few months, the next few years.
Absolutely. Prior to the break, so we're talking with Mark in Worcester, who is bringing up that a considerable percentage of Marines not wanting to take the vaccine. And I was going to pose this to you, Jerry, and to the listeners out there, because right now, I mean, we haven't seen the 3 years of putting this vaccine into monkey arms or bovine or what they usually test on animals, because it's been declared an emergency. And just like when something's a public health emergency, certain things kick in, which is why the CDC now calling racism an emergency, public health emergency, that is. It's concerning because what we learned under this public health emergency of COVID is that our freedom of speech has been taken away, confined to homes, freedom to travel, a lot of things, to assemble at church, and that's very concerning if they can apply that there. Meanwhile, those vaccines haven't been being tested in animals because it's classified an emergency. We are the animals. That's how we're getting the vaccines. That's why they're allowed to give them to us at this point. So I guess my question is, if they were to lift the emergency status, would the vaccines have to stop then? If the only reason that we're allowed to get them is because it's an emergency status.
Well, I think the emergency status, Joe, fast track the vaccines. I'm in favor of the vaccines, I'll be very honest. But it is a different technology on the vaccines. These aren't the old school, more conventional vaccines. This is a new technology that's been around for a while to go in, and you're essentially changing somebody's immune system with these vaccines, as I understand it, putting in the target protein into your immune system. And apparently these target proteins can be, geared toward anything specifically. So, the ones that are being put in right now are geared toward COVID-19, but theoretically you could put these things into target cancer or other things that could really help mankind a lot. The technology, I guess, has been around, as I understand it, since 2008, 2009, or at least this idea has been around since then. But it's the first time it's been implemented, and that's why you have such high efficacy rates as well, because it's not, your father's vaccine.
Not your father's.
It's a different type of vaccine. But I'm surprised, Mark's point with the military. I'm surprised the military has any choice.
Yeah, and
if you're in the military.
Let me go back to Mark on. Oh, actually, we lost Mark. Mark, okay, we're going to go back to you there, Mark. But because my question was that, because it's funny, I was just having a conversation with somebody in my office about the fact that when you're in the service, you're considered government property. And I'll never forget a story my father told me about many years ago when he was in the Marine Corps, and he got in trouble because he got a sunburn, and his DI told him that was destruction of government property. And they punished him, not formal charges or anything, but he had to do whatever you do, run another 10 miles or whatever it was. But he was serious that that's destruction of government property. You have to take care of your body, and letting it be burnt, not acceptable. Interesting. So I would think that, because I thought that pretty much if you're in the service and you're told, I mean, they're given inoculations, and whenever they travel, right, going across, there are certain inoculations that you have to take to go to another country and foreign countries and things of that nature. So I didn't think they'd have a choice. And that's a good point. I was hoping Mark could have maybe told us that. 508-871-7000 from the Box Drop Middlesex Mattress Outlet Studios. Let's go to Ken in Bolton. Good morning, Ken. And what's up with masks on the call screen I see?
Yeah, I was going to go to that topic, but I just thought I'd try to pick up from Mark's discussion. I'm going to guess that the Marines who have rejected the vaccine have done so because they've already had the virus, and that allows them to say, no, I'm not going to get the vaccine. I already have a degree of immunity.
Yeah, but I would think that if that's the case, then they know that, and they wouldn't want to give them the vaccine because you basically have nature's vaccine at that point.
I think a lot of people, too, Ken, are concerned about the new strains, of the vaccine. So I would imagine, I just cannot imagine that in the military they can't mandate that you're going to take a vaccine.
Yeah.
So, but Ken, you may be correct.
And also, as far as those who have had the virus, indications are that a booster shot through the vaccine process elevates your antibody levels, so it actually increases your level of immunity, although they do tend to have much higher incidence of side effects, because effectively your system is recognizing what it's already dealt with and doesn't like it, have to deal with it again.
Right. Interesting.
But the topic of masks is one of freedom, and I find it curious that to the extent that just within the last few weeks, the vaccine passport has been an issue that's popped up.
Yeah.
And what we've heard so far from the Biden administration is they're actually cool to the idea. And I'm not so much a supporter. I like a different idea than a vaccine passport. Instead, a proof of immunity, which opens up the freedoms to those who have either been vaccinated, have and gone through the full protocol, or have had the virus already and built up antibodies, or from some other means of proof to immunity. And that would lead to us ditching the masks, because I find that the masks are a symbol of bondage. So it's a mental problem that we're dealing with that is being opposed or being promoted by our political opponents, much like a lot of the speech and other policing that you've described in the previous FR.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a lot of people do have problems with the masks just on that principle alone, that the being told to. I mean, we've had years where we've had very bad strains of flu, right? We've never done this before on this mask thing, right? And we're quarantining healthy people. This was something else that we talked about. I know back in the beginning last year, this was odd because we're quarantining healthy people, and we've never done that in society before. We don't do that. We usually quarantine ill people so that it doesn't get out. That's something that's happened. I mean, quarantine comes from, and this goes back to when the ships would go into Venice, they would be required to wait out in the harbor for 40 days. It comes from the Italian word for 40. Quarantine that's where it comes from, is they would have the ships of 40 days out there before they're allowed to come into the city so that the plague wouldn't get the city.
40 days and 40 nights, Joe.
40 days and 40 nights. And that's where the quarantine comes from, that. And we just don't do that, and we haven't done that in this country before. So that always was odd to me, that you're perfectly healthy, but you stay-at-home order.
It doesn't seem to make any sense. And also, to Ken's point as well, with these masks, when you think about it, we've been told our entire lives that what is a breeding ground for any type of bacteria is a warm, humid environment. And when you look at these masks, I understand the coronavirus is a really important thing right now, tops on everybody's list and everything. But what in God's name else is going on inside those masks when you have these masks on for prolonged periods of time? Another thing, too, I was speaking to a doctor friend of mine a couple of months ago, and he was saying, in an emergency room or anywhere else, they're changing these masks frequently. Every 15 or 20 minutes, they're ripping off a mask and putting a new one on because they are just breeding grounds for all sorts of bacteria and god-awful stuff. Yeah. And we have people running around with the same mask on.
Since the beginning of
quarantine with, this mask is, written in crayon on the outside of it. It's crazy. Yeah. I think, we're probably at the point where we should be on masks. We here at the studio have our window open today. We're coming into nicer weather. we have fresh air coming in and so on. So I'm on board with Ken. I think these masks at this point are very questionable.
Yeah, and the other thing, we were wiping down groceries in every countertop, right? I mean, the varnish and the facade is off my countertop at this point. But then we find, it comes out from CDC a few days ago. It can't really survive. We can't transmit it on surfaces. So all of that wiping and disinfecting, although there's, just because coronavirus can't live in sunlight and it's very fragile, right? Doesn't mean you shouldn't wipe things down occasionally anyway, right? I mean, brushing your teeth doesn't stop coronavirus, but you should still do it anyway. Right. In other words, I'm okay with the fact that we've become more aware and conscious of this. One of the reasons that this year's, the flu season is non-existent, right? I mean, you talk to your doctor, and because we're doing all the corona protocols, the flu didn't have a chance. Right. I mean, and so I think there's nothing wrong. So if we come out of this and everybody washes their hands more often and maybe, wipes things down a little more often, I think that's good. I mean, that's a great byproduct of this whole thing.
It's one of the things that your parents should have taught you anyway. And we probably should go back to basic hygiene courses in elementary schools and so on.
Absolutely. Anything else in the mask? Because I think that I honestly think the masks, they run their course. And the fact is, if you've gotten the vaccine and you're 2 weeks out, even the CDC says you can't give it, you can't get it, you don't need to wear the mask. Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, that's just, he tries to say this is not political, but it is political. If you're wearing 2 masks whenever you're on TV and nobody's around you and you've had the vaccine, it is political, Joe. There's no other reason for you to be wearing that mask other than your messaging.
Right.
Ken?
Can I bring this topic to a local idea?
Sure.
Think of Worcester and its theaters, whether you're talking about Hanover Theater or I keep forgetting the hall, Mechanics Hall.
Mechanics Hall. And they also now have that black box in the pop-up theater, too. But, anyway.
Should they be open now?
I would think
open
so.
Within a month or two.
I would think so. What's the deal with Paw Sox, by the way? Well, now the Woo Sox, the Polo Stadium. I was just by there yesterday checking out. It really looks like almost 90% done. There's still construction going on and all that, but we were supposed to be playing, was it this summer? Right? It was supposed to be December 21, right? This month.
I think, and I don't know, but I think it's as early as May.
Okay.
But here's the point. That's an outdoor activity.
Mm-hmm. An outdoor, it's an outdoor stadium. I mean, out in the fresh air.
It's not a problem now.
I don't think it is.
We've got these mental barriers that we built up over a year where we're paranoid.
Yeah.
Get over it.
It's interesting. Watch, the TV shows that have just started airing now, which they had to suspend last year, but now they got to get back in the studios, Ken and Derry, right? And of course they're addressing whether it's like A Million Little Things or whatever show you watch, that Shameless or whatever, they're dealing with the virus and the whole thing. So now you're looking back and they're talking about it. And the Million Little Things takes place in Boston. So, of course, they're making reference to the Governor Baker in the Massachusetts, the Commonwealth stay-at-home order and all that. And it's funny to watch it because it's supposed to be this past year in real time that they're doing it when it happened. And you watch it now and you go, wow, were we idiots? I mean, yeah.
Well, I think what happened, Joe and Ken, is I think that, this thing started off, remember, as a novel coronavirus, a new strain of coronavirus. So initially, when any of us hear that this is a new strain, I think we're all going to give the CDC, and others in the government a little bit of leeway, right? It's just common sense that we would do that
tell us.
We want to err on the side of caution. We don't want to see anybody, injured by anything that goes on. So of course we give them a little bit of leeway. But now we're into this for a good year and a half, and and we're discovering that the virus did originate, at that Wuhan laboratory.
Yeah.
And we are seeing now that there has been a real political aspect to all of the mask wearing and everything else. And as a previous caller was saying, kind of the socialization this has been used in part as almost a coup to take over and take some of the freedoms away.
Yeah.
So I think we are at the point where we really have to question what's going on, because it's no longer a novel coronavirus. We do have, vaccines for it and so on.
Yeah. I'm the most thing I'm surprised at is the level of churches that didn't step up more. I mean, this is usually in the times of difficult times and threats of death, and it's
very good point.
People flock to church, and that's where you look, and they were really squashed on quite a bit. Ken, before I let you go, any final thoughts on that? But I agree with you. I think we're kind of over them. Even though here I'm sitting here with a mask still stuck in my back pocket, and there's still one in my briefcase in case, and there's probably two in the door of my car. But I think we've run the course on the masks at this point.
So very simple to the local example, Hanover Theater or Mechanics Hall. They have their events. You have proof of immunity. You can go without a mask. And let them be open also to those who don't have proof of immunity, but they have a requirement to wear a mask.
Hey, and the bottom line is,
let them
folks,
open up.
Just because something's open and you can do it doesn't mean you have to. If you're uncomfortable, then just don't. Right?
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? That
Well,
goes
let
with
them
everything,
keep their
right?
business.
You don't like the TV show? Don't watch it. You don't like guns? Don't get one. It's just, that's always been my answer to that. That's what living in a free society is all about. Ken, thank you so much for the call. Good points and good topic to bring up. Appreciate it. All right, that was Ken. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation from the Box Drop Middlesex Mattress Outlet Studios. Let's go to Joel in Worcester. Actually, you're down at the gates in Florida, Joe?
I wish I was.
Oh.
No, I'm not.
Oh, okay. It says Gates from Florida on this call screen, so I didn't know what that meant.
Oh, Gates. I was making a reference to the congressman from Florida.
Oh, Matt Gates, yes.
Oh, Gates,
Yes,
got it.
Gates.
Okay,
Yeah.
Representative Gates, I got it now. There was no rep on there. Okay, so Representative Gates from Florida. Yeah, what about him? He's got some accusations leveled at him, right?
Yeah, well, he sure does. Would you call him anything but a sexual predator?
Well, I wouldn't call him anything
Jerry?
until I know what the accusations are and the credibility. In other words, you can't condemn anybody till you know what's going on. So,
Joe,
educate
right.
us. What is the accusation on him, against him, rather?
The accusations, taking pictures of naked women and distributing them to his friends and other people. I mean, the guy, House Minority Leader McCarthy,
that's a pretty, if it's
should
true.
remove him from the House, but it's not going to happen. Joe, it only bothers me when you bring up.
Joel, we can't look at, have we done that to anyone else? Have we removed anyone else on accusations alone? Meanwhile, you've got somebody like Swalwell who actually literally caught in bed with the Chinese spy and is still in the Foreign Committee. I mean, that should have been addressed. But I agree. If it turns out that there's truth to any of this, I don't think he should be sitting as a United States congressman. However, we're in a country where you are innocent until proven guilty, and accusations do not prove guilt.
To Joel's point, though, there does seem to be. I know that there has been nothing definitively to say that Matt Gaetz is guilty, but to Joel's point, there seems to be a heck of a lot of heavy smoke around this issue. And Joel, I agree with you. I think there probably is an underlying fire there.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
guys,
they're going to get to it, right? I mean, they will go through the process, and if it turns out to be factual and truthful, he should be removed, and the House can do that.
Well, did you two, Jerry and Joe, did you see he's been on Sean Hannity's show over 330 times?
I didn't know that number, but I know he's a staple.
God, speaking of partisanship when it comes to Hannity, but Joe, my only beef now with you and Jerry is more with you, Joe.
Of course.
I don't know how the heck you consider the American people do not care they don't care what Hunter Biden did and what he does. I mean,
Joel,
Biden were known before election day. Yeah.
Joel, I disagree with you there, and this is where I think you do become I think you do become a partisan. This sexual addiction, whether it's 18-year-old girls or whether it's prostitutes that are, of age, whatever it happens to be, this is an equal opportunity affliction. This affects Democrats and it affects Republicans.
I'd agree with you.
Right.
I agree.
Right. And so I think, with Hunter Biden, very clearly there are some issues there with Hunter Biden. And let's remember, Hunter Biden is not the, offspring of a president of the United States. Hunter Biden is a 50-year-old guy with a bunch of kids, and he might even be older than 50. I'm not quite sure how old he is. This is a grown man who very clearly has some issues in a lot of different areas. And I do think that relative to that laptop and so on, I do think that there are a number of Americans, a good number of Americans, who are very interested in what went on there and the whole Burisma thing and so on, and where all this money's flying around with the Biden family.
And there's a lot of that laptop that we don't know about. All that we do know is it's so serious that if you were caught in possession of that information, you could be in trouble because of national security. And then you add that, if his father wasn't the president, it'd be a little less, because we'd be looking back in history and say, well, what was going on while he was vice president with Moscow and Ukraine and all that.
Joe. Hunter Biden is really becoming the poster child for there are two standards of justice here in the United States. I think Hillary Clinton is another poster child for this, that there's one standard of justice, one rule of law, as Joe Mangiacotti and Joel, that you have to obey, but then there are others who don't have to obey these same laws.
Yeah, and we've seen that.
Do you think Trump should receive security reports?
Yes, I do.
Now that he's no longer in the White House, he should receive them.
But all presidents do.
All presidents do. I don't think Donald Trump should be treated any differently.
Really? You think it's safe to our nation's national?
Okay, so you're condemning someone for an action they didn't do, Joel. Joe, you think that he shouldn't have it because you think he...
Of course not.
Okay, but now you're condemning him for an action that he didn't do, and we don't do that.
I think Joe Biden is a bigger security risk than Donald Trump.
Absolutely,
I'll be very honest.
Joe Biden is a bigger security. For one thing, Joe Biden is his cognitive ability, and I'm not even going to argue on this.
What about Dianne Feinstein?
Yeah, what about Dianne?
Do you think she left anything lying around in the front seat of her car?
What about Ivanka Trump and Eric and Donald Trump? What about those three characters?
What about them?
You don't bring up
they're all intelligent, articulate, successful people. What about them?
Yeah, what about Ivanka's deal with China? Huh?
What deal?
What about her deal with China?
What deal?
You know what deal?
No. Lay it out. What deal? This is the thing about this is we're going to have to break here, unfortunately, Joe. But the thing about this, like they went after Donald Trump because he had a Chinese bank account, which he closed years before running for president. And prior to being a politician and running, he was an international businessman that had bank accounts in countries all over the place where he was building buildings. It's asinine. You're trying to make hay where there's no hay there. Unfortunately, we're against the clock.
I was just going to say, because Ivanka Trump ate Chinese food from the Tiki Port last night, seriously. There's no connection to China, Joe.
I know. Come on, Joel. Thank you for the call, but I have to break. Nothing I can do about the clock. Hey, Jack, Bruce, please stay on the line. We'll be with you when we come back from the Box Drop Middlesex Mattress Outlet Studios. Jerry Dory, Joe Mangiacotti. Back in a moment, folks.
WACE Chicopee and WCRN Worcester.
7 o'clock. Hey folks, Joe Mangiacotti from the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. Reminding you, talk radio is the immune system to the partisan, bias, political rhetoric attacking us on a daily basis. Get inoculated. The Joe Mangiacotti Show is your vaccine. Join me weekend mornings, 6 to 8.
If you were to ask any retiree in a word, they would tell you that retirement is all about income. Income in retirement is a permission slip to enjoy life. Income provides the freedom to spend money each month knowing that more will arrive next month and the month after that. As important as it is to accumulate assets for your retirement, it's equally, if not more important, to maximize the income being generated from your assets. My name is Jerry Doherty, and my radio program, Making Money Last, has been heard right here on WCRN. Well, do you know if your retirement income is as high as it could be? Are you living off less than you should be? Well, I'd like to offer you a complimentary review to answer that very question. Simply call my office at 877-772-1776. I'm conveniently located right on Route 9 in Westboro. Again, my number is 877-772-1776. Let's increase your income today.
I want to tell you what Cantiani Insurance has been able to do for me and Teddy. We stopped in to see Paul Sr. and the great staff at 318 Plantation Street. They've been handling my car and business insurance for years. Teddy was making his way around the office, and they let me know. They now offer pet insurance. For a fraction of what one visit to the vet was for Teddy, they could cover him for a whole year. I know you treat your furry family members like any other family member, and as well as I do Teddy. The professional staff at Cantiani has been providing courteous service for over 40 years, with integrity and personalized service, making sure that your insurance actually protects you and your family. With 2 locations, the 318 Plantation Street in Worcester and East Douglas Insurance Agency, located at 306 Main Street in Douglas. For home, auto, business insurance, and now pet insurance, click CantianiAgency.com or call 508-791-2088. 508-791-2088.
So are you tired of being tired? Well, then it's time to get the tea. Hey, it's Lisa here to tell you about this all-natural, all-organic tea I've been drinking that has had great results for over 20 years. It's called Life Change Tea, and it's specially formulated to help detoxify and cleanse your kidneys, liver, colon, and blood all at once. The colon is one of the most ignored organs in the human body. The faster that waste is eliminated from the body, the less time that waste sits in our intestines, spreading toxins to our bloodstream. This tea helps cleanse chemicals caused by outside intruders from our entire digestive system. And get this, weight loss can be a side effect. And with continued use of the tea, you can experience clearer, healthier, younger looking skin, increased energy, and a happier outlook on life. So if you're tired of being tired, get the Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. And like me, you'll be glad you did.
All right, folks, welcome back to the second hour of the Saturday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show from the Box Drop Middlesex Mattress Outlet Studios. You know, I keep saying that, Jerry, and I have to tell you, I was so thrilled that John came along in my life with this Dropbox Middlesex Mattress Outlet on 50 Main Street in Ashland. I got such a deal on, you know, moving right and going through this purging, and I got to tell you, this is not just commercial stuff, folks. I went to the Brothers, or the store that used to be owned by the Brothers. They sold it to Warren Buffett, right? And literally, I ended up getting a better mattress in the power base that does the massage and the heat. All of that is go 50% of what I was going to pay and take off $300 more. That's what I ended up paying for a better mattress and a better base.
Is that the Matt Gates special that they're
That is
having
the
on
Matt
beds?
Gates, because you got to flip that mattress a lot of times. So that's it. So guys, check it out. Find him on Facebook at Middlesex Mattress Outlet. Awesome, John. Absolutely check it out, because look at how long you've been sleeping on. A lot of us have been on the same mattress for 10, 20 years. You know, I think my parents had the same mattress literally for like 40 years before we convinced them to get a new mattress, like at one point. Anyway, folks, 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Don't forget the text line is up and running, and a lot of you like to use the text line, and that's fine. Oh, see, boom. I say that, and I look down, Jerry, and we've got some texting. I have missed CDC guidance with regard to disposal of masks other than parking lots and sidewalks. That's true, too, right? So all these masks, you see them strewn all over the parking lot. They're going to make it into the waterway. And then we're going to have a problem with the fishies and turtles getting masks stuck on their face.
An environmental
highly contagious virus particles or droplets, Fauci's words, infest these masks. Right. Well, I said this before, guys. Fauci lost his credibility as the scientific guy for me when he admitted that when he first came out in the beginning of this and told us, you don't need to wear a mask. It doesn't matter. It's not going to do anything for you. He admitted later that he said that to manipulate us into not buying up all the masks. And if you're supposed to be a scientist in the room and you say something like that, you've lost that platform. You've lost that credibility of, I'm the scientist in the room, and I'm just going to give you the scientific data. And he admitted that he did this as a manipulation of it. So he lost it there from me, folks. 508-87, thanks for the text, folks. And yeah, also the one, Joel is back. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Who has been waiting? Bruce in Northbridge, I guess, has been the longest waiting. Bruce, thank you for holding on, sir. I know you've been on for a few minutes. You're on with Jerry Doherty and myself, and you look marvelous.
You both look marvelous with what you're trying to do for the public.
Thank you.
The biggest problem with this whole event has been the lack of support of one another. What do I mean by that? The first time something happened, 9/11, everybody was supporting everybody. Everybody was encouraging everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Day one, we had press conferences, and they were spilling out information that they thought was right, and then they changed it the next day. Then you have the president trying to be uplifting and trying to work through this whole thing, and people are taking shots at him left and right.
Right.
And what is really is shown is he's been right on every single count.
Isn't that interesting, Bruce, right? That so many of the things that we're talking about Trump had said, turns out, right now we just see this hydrochloroquine has in fact come out to be like the miracle drug that it is. But because Trump said, hey, this might be a good, treatment and a good preventative. Oh, no. Anything Orange Man said has got to be bad. And that's okay for politics. But when it translates into actually doing harm and by people being told by the media in the other side of the aisle that it's not a drug that's 40 years has been in use and has been prescribed by doctors on a regular basis for decades, because Trump mentioned it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then on top of that, he was the first president in history that combined all the talent in the manufacturing world and all the talent in the manufacturing of drug companies.
And the other thing, Bruce, is, and you're making a great point, when it comes to the manufacturing, is he got these companies, say Pfizer, they might have had certain knowledge or whatever, but they didn't have the manpower or the room. So he got Moderna to work with it. In other words, they were working in a way that they never worked before. Nobody really talks about that, right? That they got together in the room and said, well, we've got X number of employees and we've got this knowledge, but we can use your facility over here to apply our science. I mean, there was a crossover in a cooperation among these corporations that under normal circumstances would not have happened because of the capitalism and free market and
that's what Donald Trump has done his entire life is he's put deals together. I think though, Bruce, I think you bring up a great point with this. That with coronavirus, you look at the contrast to 9/11. I think that's a very good contrast, Bruce. Another national crisis. George Bush, 43, painted a picture to pull us out of this. Donald Trump, with coronavirus, painted a picture to pull us out of this. Motivational, there is hope, there is a tomorrow. Tomorrow can be brighter, all of that. With Joe Biden, though, he really is, let's stay in this malaise that we're in. Let's have the country mired in this because it can move their, DNC political agenda forward. Yeah. It's a very good point that you bring up, Bruce.
One thing also is there's HEPA rules. I am going to be, now this is even funnier, okay? We have a website that makes reservations so you can make an appointment. They ask for your zip code. So I give my zip code. It's clearly Central Mass. Everybody knows it.
Mm-hmm.
So what does the website do? It sets me up for an appointment in Boston.
In Wellfleet.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm not used to going to Red Sox games
Right.
and going on the tee, knowing that it will go right past where I need to go, then there's a problem.
Yeah.
Okay? Not all people know that.
Exactly. You know, Bruce, is a side thing, right? Because the Worcester, I always found it, because I'm not a Worcester native. I moved to Worcester many years ago, became a Worcesterite. But what I found among friends in Worcester is so many people don't really go far beyond Worcester from Worcester. Like they think it's the center of the universe. And I had a friend, unfortunately he passed away, but at 51 years old, he said to me one time, I need to go to this particular building. It was a health thing, right? Can you take me? I said, sure. You don't like to drive in the city. He goes, well, I've never been to Boston. I said, wait a minute. You're 51 years old. You live in Worcester, Massachusetts, 30 miles the way the crow flies, due west of Boston. You've never been, but you've been to the beach. Well, yeah, he's gone up to Maine and down to the Cape, but never, ever has he set foot in Boston proper, and he was 51 years old. And I thought that was phenomenal that could happen, that life didn't bring you to Boston yet, you know? I'm sorry, Bruce, go ahead.
To finish with the math.
Yes, you were going to comment on that.
Until people have confidence, all the businesses are going to be running around making sure the mask rules are still up. When I go and get my vaccine, I'm going to go get my vaccine, get it, and then I'm going to get the second vaccine.
Did you get the first yet?
No, I'm getting it Wednesday.
So let me ask you this, Bruce, because I've seen a lot of people, including some of our own people here at the station, they've posted, on their social media, hey, I got the vaccine. And every time I've seen them post, they have a button, just like I voted, but not a sticker, like an actual button. And I'm wondering, is that normal? Does every place give you a button? All right. Our intern's saying yes to me. So everybody gets a button. So I would say that if you get the vaccine, right, can you put that button on your jacket and then walk into a store without a mask? And that's a way of letting everybody know I don't need to wear the mask?
I'm throwing the button away. The only people that need to know that I have the vaccine is me and my doctor.
All right, so that's where you're saying the HIPAA is coming into the thing, because that is true.
So after I get my vaccine, I'm going to bring the card to my doctor and have him photocopy it into my medical records. Then I'm going to do something really crazy. I'm going to bring it home, and I'm going to put it in a place where no one knows if I had it or not.
Right. They're only going to know when they're going through your stuff to get ready for the funeral, right? That's when they're going to find it.
But Bruce, what's the upside of trying to hide the fact that you are vaccinated? What is the upside? What are you trying to accomplish by that? Other than you just want to remain a private person. Other than that, is there any upside to not publicizing the fact that you've had this vaccine?
I have to think about that, but my reasoning is I never went crazy. Okay, I knew that this was the problem, and I knew the flu was a problem. I knew it was something that was going to go through a course, and everything was going to be fine.
Yeah.
I knew that I was going to have to abide from what different businesses where I work would have to do. So we did that, okay? I haven't done anything different other than wear a mask in certain spots.
Right.
I don't go wear a mask in the woods, but I see a whole bunch of masks laying around the woods.
Yeah, I've seen that too. I was driving by Elm Park the other day, and it was jamming, right? I mean, it was a nice, warm day, right? A couple days ago. And here's these people walking dogs and so forth. But I see people walking along the edge there of the sidewalk. And nobody's around them for 100 feet or more on a beautiful sunny day, and they have a mask on. And I'm thinking, why? Is it the conditioning? We're back to that whole, behavior and government getting us to do that because, quite frankly, again, we're back to moist, dark. It's doing more damage with those droplets being stuck in that mask and
Joe,
getting
I
wet
think it is
than the
what
sunlight.
you were saying earlier is that there are people out there wearing these masks who are, some of them could conceivably be vaccinated, to be very honest, and they're making a political statement.
Yeah,
they're making a political statement. They want to make some type of political statement to make you somehow feel less because they're wearing their mask, even though they could very well be vaccinated. You could be vaccinated,
I
yet
walked
they're
down
still
the
wearing
wrong
their
side
mask.
of the aisle too. I walked down the wrong side of the aisle too.
Oh, yeah. Because my grocery store did the same thing. They changed it. And somebody said, oh, this is, and I said, look, I've been coming to this grocery store for 17 years. I know where everything is, and I do the same route. I don't care if they change the direction. I'm going to go the way I go.
Really, what is it? What is it doing? How
it doesn't.
How much of the spread of coronavirus has been tamped down because of one-way aisles in grocery stores?
And how come all these stock
honest
boys
about
and
this.
cashiers, how come they haven't all dropped dead in the aisles, right? This whole year and a half. And that brings me, and I'm going to have to let you go in a second, Bruce, but that brings me to the whole teachers thing. And that, again, it's not about the virus and it's not about the safety. It's about power here because, we have the cashiers and the drivers and the clerk people and all these people who have kind of been the front line, feeding us and getting us our groceries, getting us our medications and just our toilet paper. They've been dealing with it. And now the teachers, when they come out with this stuff, Bruce and Jerry, where they want, they're talking about defunding the police and stuff that has nothing to do with getting into the classroom. Again, you jumped the shark, you tilted, you gave up your hand, you went too far.
Never let a good crisis go to waste.
That's what
right?
they say.
That's exactly what's going on here in every aspect.
You got it.
That's the common theme, Joe, among every caller.
Yeah.
Is never let a
call
good crisis go to waste. That's really what it's boiling down.
Don't call the police and the EMTs when you have problems because they're not going to be around because you defunded them.
Yeah.
Right. And that is the problem that we're seeing everywhere across the board. It's something I mentioned earlier where, you've got record resignations and retirements, and yet you don't have or if you do have a graduating academy class, it's 12 people instead of 60 or 100. So that's the problem. Thank you so much for the call. Appreciate it. We're here. We are the Joe Mangiacotti Show from the Box Drop Middlesex Mattress Outlet Studios. Let's go to Jack in Oxford, who's been waiting patiently. And my screen says corporations, Jack. What's that about?
Well, I just wanted to contrast, and I think the way the last caller was talking about the CDC and the way, government, Biden is using the corporations as opposed to the way Trump used the corporations. There couldn't be a bigger contrast.
Good observation, yeah.
He was doing it remedially, and he was encouraging people to do things. And look at the innovation that's come out of all this.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Look at absolutely, this will have benefits ad infinitum, new techniques, new processes, new even financial ways to work for companies to work together in this kind of a situation.
And can't we now apply the concept of Operation Warp Speed to other areas, Jack?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But contrast that with Biden. And Jerry might, I'm convinced here that it isn't so much that these corporations are woke. Most of these corporations have some sort of relationship to the federal government. Take Home Depot. They are one of the biggest FEMA suppliers that FEMA has. When they, Katrina and those things, they were bringing railroad cars of plywood in. Think of the companies that build all these mobile homes to supply FEMA. Think of Coca-Cola. How many cafeterias and government buildings sell Coke products?
Mm-hmm.
So Jerry could probably really nail this down. If you look at the Dow 30, S&P 500, Russell 2000, and you look at the revenue stream that comes from doing business with federal, state, and local government, and the Chamber of Commerce sponsors something called the U.S. Communities Act, and it basically tutors companies on how to do business with government. And big companies love big government because every law needs an agency, every agency needs a building with everything that goes with it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at that revenue stream on their financial sheets, a big part of it is what's done with government. Even Wall Street underwrites all the municipal bonds and everything else. So I think that pressure is coming from the government to say, hey, and even Major League Baseball, if you're going to do business overseas in any ways, there's stuff that has to pass through government about doing business in a foreign country. So I think that pressure is more that way that's being used now with these companies than the fact that they're woke. Because I don't believe the CEOs are that. You run out of adjectives.
Right. And you're saying that, Joe and the invisible hand with Joe is the one saying to these companies, which traditionally, corporations, although political, they stayed neutral, as you said. They did do that because, like it's, conservatives
Why do you
and
want to
liberals.
pick off half your customers?
Exactly. And was it Michael Jordan who said, I sell sneakers to Republicans too, or conservatives too.
Exactly.
And that's so true. And I've always had the respect for the entertainers like Dolly Parton and others who have always said, you're not going to get me to talk politics. Why would I piss off half of my fan base? And I think that's right where they should be. And now we're looking at, and the funny thing with this Atlanta issue, or Georgia, I should say, is that Coca-Cola and some of these other companies, they actually participated in the writing of the bill. And they were all in favor of this bill till all of a sudden a few, tweets about it, and they get petrified. And I think that they think that they're buying insurance, just like those little bodegas or the businesses that put BLM in their windows, or we support Black Lives Matter or something, when all the looting and fires were going on, thinking that might protect them from getting their store looted or set to fire. If they were saying, "Oh, I'm with you," they may not have been.
Yeah, I think Jack, I think you have nailed it. Many of these large corporations, especially, are conflicted. They're conflicted. They really are. They want to have their cake and they want to eat it too. They want to keep these government contracts, and they probably in their minds know that they're doing something wrong, but it's out of their interest. It's not to move an American agenda forward. It's to move a Delta or a Coca-Cola agenda forward. That's what it's about.
Once they're multinational, Jerry, that the borders become an issue. I used to have to go up to Hanscom Field for a company I worked for in Worcester, and we had an export license for a little machine that came in from Britain. And I would have to go up to Hanscom Field in Bedford, and for these little machines that cost about $300, each one of the machines I had to sign 5 sheets of paper, not copied, 5 sheets of paper for each of these little machines. And it would take me half the day by the time I got through with it, because you had to cross out, and things would change with it. So multinationals don't like borders; they like this globalism.
Mm-hmm.
But that leaves. Then the other tension they have is, I may be an American company, but hey, half my business is overseas. This issue with borders and trade and currency, different taxes. All that stuff gets in the way of that, which is why they're so favorable towards open borders, because just from a business point of view.
Right.
So where does the nationality come in? So Trump was unique. He was coming in and saying to the New World Order, essentially, Bretton Woods, IMF, World Bank, United Nations, everything that's been built, because I've been a small businessman several times, there have been no good business rulings towards small business since World War II. There's been all this feat of the companies that built all the war machine and everything else, bless them for that. But after that, same thing that happened with the railroads. When did all the lobbying start to come in with the railroads? Once they became, an integral part, all of a sudden there's this almost incestuous relationship.
Yeah.
I don't think there were many lobbyists in the Continental Congress.
Good point.
Jack, you are a great caller. You're absolutely spot on.
Yeah, and the other thing about this, and this becomes a problem with no borders and the globalism, is not everybody is behaving the same way. And what I'm talking about is, you got the Chinese Communist Party who does today, what they do to the Uyghurs and the concentration camps, and they step on it. Now you've got Coca-Cola. All of a sudden, again, they were part of writing the Atlanta bill. A couple of tweets later, they're on board, and they get the head nod from Biden that they would support this boycott. Now, on that, and this is the thing, meanwhile, China, they sell a lot of Coca-Cola in China, right?
Exactly.
Meanwhile, when you look at this, here's Atlanta, which is basically, America's Black Wall Street. I mean, it is a black community. Have you watched an episode of Housewives from Atlanta?
Yeah.
I mean, you know what it is. So you have 30% of the businesses are black owned in Atlanta itself, right? 54% of the population is black. They move it to Denver, Colorado, and I said this the other day, you might as well have moved it to a giant Wonder Bread plastic bag. I mean, this is 70-something% white and only 9% black. In Boulder, and this is horrible, right? And then I mean, when you look at the
and
other
more restrictive
stats,
voting,
exactly, because this bill in Atlanta, folks, gives 17 days of early voting, 19 if they opt in for the Sundays.
I have to go along, but you just lit my brain on fire. If you as a citizen can't do the closest thing to being called sacred in our secular citizenship, which is the vote, if you can't put a date on a calendar and get your caucus there, then maybe you ought not to be voting because you are telling us you don't care enough.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. This multiple day voting thing doesn't make sense. You know when it is, and as far as the whole ID thing goes, I think it's very insulting for the left to kind of signal that Black America can't get their act together to get an ID. That somehow, I mean, who's the racist here?
Right. Exactly. The benign racism. We're still talking to Jim Crow people. You know, they're talking like they're on a plantation. And I have black friends. They say, "Man, you're drinking the Kool-Aid again." Yeah. You know,
I got to tell you this. Now, the other thing about this, when Biden used that term, and then we find out that Stacey Abrams and the ilk went and registered the domain name Jim Crow 2.0.com weeks before this controversy.
Oh, yeah.
Now, that's all the evidence I need to know. This is all orchestrated, planned out. And I think it got out of hand because all of a sudden Abrams is trying to walk this back because she's getting a lot of static about the 100 million plus that she's costing mostly black businesses.
190 million.
All right, 190 million. Once you get into 100 million, you were talking real money. So
real money.
She's going to have a political backlash to this, by the way, because she still thinks she's governor, by the way.
Right.
So,
by the way,
she's backtracking it, and she's like, please, but too late. Now, this commissioner, he's another jamoke. I mean, he should have never done what he did. Hey, we're running against the clock. I want to say, Jack, thank you very much. Awesome call. I appreciate it. Thanks for listening. Joyce, if you can hold on, we're going to have to take a quick break for handling change. Jerry Doherty in studio with me from the Box Drop Middlesex Mattress Outlet Studios. I'm Joe Mangiacotti. We'll be back in a few moments. Good morning and welcome to Handling Change. I'm Joe Mangiacotti along with Heidi Zizza, who joins us this week. The purchase or sale of your home or investment property could be one of the largest challenges you have, and Heidi can help you handle those challenges. Good morning, Heidi.
Good morning, Joe, and thank you for having me on the show today. I'm excited to be here.
Welcome back. I'm always looking forward to the tidbits of information you share with us. And I was thinking this week, since you had mentioned how much of a seller's market it is, that maybe we turn our attention to the buyers and you give a little advice and some tips. If you're a buyer and you're about to start looking, what are some of the things you can do to make yourself a better candidate, because it is kind of a bidding situation, and the things you should have prepared to go out looking at property in a seller's market?
Well, first of all, you absolutely have to be prepared. And that means having a really strong pre-approval letter. And gone are the days where your pre-approval letter should just match your offer. You should show that you are pre-approved to go over and above, because that's really what you're going to have to do in this market. I haven't had a house go under contract in the last 3 to 4 months that went anywhere even near what the asking price was. In some cases, they're going $100,000 over asking. So you really need to be prepared to go highest and best and prove that you can go to that point Buyers are ditching every contingency out there right now. And it's really making it tough for some of these buyers, for sure. It is a seller's market.
Expand on that a little bit about the contingencies. When you say they're ditching the contingencies, what does that translate to?
A lot of buyers are saying, we will buy this house as is. We will not even do a home inspection. You pick the closing date. I mean, they're literally giving everything to the seller on a silver platter. A lot of people, depending on your financial situation, I would never recommend doing this unless you were very, very financially secure. But a lot of people are buying houses without even a mortgage contingency because they want to be the winning bid. So those sellers are saying, we're going to take the cleanest deal. No chance for anyone to back out. And if they do, they lose their deposit. So it's really getting kind of cutthroat out there.
So this means going into the bidding or even the looking phase of a house with a pre-qual letter, which means you need to speak to a mortgage broker ahead of time?
You absolutely have to sit down with a mortgage broker ahead of time. You need to let them run your credit. You need to show them some of your W-2s so that they can say in that letter, not only is Joe Mangiacotti pre-approved to buy a house for $500,000, we've already done some of the background on him. We've already run his credit. We've already checked his pay stubs, and we know for sure that not only can he afford $500, but he can afford $600 or $650, whatever the number may be. You've got to show that you are a strong candidate for that house, and you've got to go in with your highest and best. In some instances, they're not even coming back to these people. Could be 27 offers on a house, and they're not even giving you a second chance to bid.
This sounds like it could be very discouraging for a buyer to enter the market. So what do they do in this case? Do they move to an area?
Pray.
They pray. Do they work with someone like yourself to really narrow down the location and the properties to look at? And do you have to, keep that? Chances are it could go for over the asking price when you're setting up the looking, list anyway?
Oh, I prepare people for the fact that, if your maximum is 700, let's not look at everything that's 700. Let's look at things that are 600. Let's look between 600 and 700 because the chances of something that's at 700 going for 700 are slim to none. And if that's your cap, that's not going to work for you. I'm trying to encourage people to expand their town choice a little bit, not say I only want to be in this one town, because with everything being so competitive, you need to have a little bit more on the option list.
Got it. Now, the only saving grace here, Heidi, is that if this is the second house you upgrade, as we do, the starter house, and then you upgrade over 1 or 2 times, is they would be making it up on the sale end of their house. But for that first-time buyer, this is an uphill battle.
It is an uphill battle, and I don't see it changing anytime soon right now at all. Nobody is putting their house on the market because what's happening is it's a seller's market. It is. I discuss this in my own household all the time, being that I'm an empty nester. My husband will say, the prices are so crazy, we should sell our house right now, but there's nothing to buy because nobody's listing their house, and that's why the prices are just so crazy. The buyer pool is choosing from such a small amount of sales that are available, listings that are available, that it's just driving the prices sky high.
All right, Heidi, great information as usual. Thank you very much for joining us for Handling Change.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Joe, and have an excellent weekend.
And thank you for joining us for Handling Change. Join us each week at 7:30 as we give you the tools to handle the changes in your life, and visit us at handlingchange.info. You can find Heidi on Facebook at MDM Realty and email her at mdmrealty@msn.com. And you can always call Heidi. Her cell number is 508-277-2032. For Heidi, I'm Joe Mangiacotti.
To join the conversation, call 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. Now, here's your host, Joe Mangiacotti.
All right, folks, welcome back to the second half of the second hour, the final segment of the Saturday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show from the Box Drop Middlesex Mattress Outlet Studios. Our number to join the conversation, 508-871-7000. 508-871-7000. Our text line is up and running at 617-297-8388. And we've got plenty of texts rolling in. Joe Biden is using corporations and the police as their enforcers. Bully, brainwash, blackmail, bribing are the means being used to ensure they cooperate. All right, that's from text 508. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Jerry Dory in studio with me, as it is the second Saturday of the month, and that's the day we usually reserve for you,
Happy
Jerry.
Saturday to you, Joe.
And of course, you can catch Jerry for his financial show, Making Money Last, Monday through Friday from 11 to 12 noon, and especially if you're approaching or in those retirement years, right? Coming up to it, and it comes quicker than you think. Right?
Comes a lot more quickly than you realize. In the blink of an eye, Joe, 40 years pass. From 25 to 65 years old, you wake up, and people discover that they have no real plan for what to do with all of this wealth that they've accumulated.
Yeah,
How
they
are
might
gonna
have.
make it last? Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say they have no real plan, but when they stop and look at it, they have like all of these different retirement accounts and savings that we change jobs. Typically, it used to be right. We'd go to work for the same place our entire career, retire with that pension. But now you switch jobs and you start a retirement fund here and there, and all of a sudden, if they sit down with you, they might realize there's a lot of cash that they need to organize, and you can put that all together so that they're not going to run out of money.
They have an IRA roll over here, an IRA roll over there, and it's a little bit like that junk drawer in your kitchen, right? But they can all be brought together, consolidated. We can keep the good, get rid of the bad, and put together a cohesive plan to get you out of this thing alive.
Yeah.
In your retirement.
Yeah, and to remember, that. Given the life, we just had Prince Philip, just a couple months shy of 100 years old.
Yeah.
Passed away at 99. And not that we're all princesses or anything like that, but life expectancy, we can live 30 or 40 years
Easily.
In retirement. That for some of us means we're living in retirement as many years as we worked.
So with each passing year, your life expectancy becomes greater. And I just happen to know off the top of my head, if you do reach age 100, like he almost did, then your new life expectancy becomes 103.
Isn't that
so
awesome?
It really is just
I like that. So every time I reach a certain age, my expectancy gets pushed forward.
Gets a little bit
That's
longer.
wonderful, right? Should never die if that's the case. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Let's go to Joyce in Sutton, who's been waiting patiently. Joyce, thank you so much for doing that, and you look marvelous.
Joyce.
You
don't
Here
see
you are.
don't see me. You don't see me
Oh, how do you know?
because I know you don't.
These phones today, Joyce, they're very fancy.
Joyce, we're just painting a mental image of you, Joyce.
I'm just
that's
taking
all.
a safe bet. You look marvelous.
And we really welcome you to the program based upon that mental image.
Well, my friend called.
Which
you know
one?
my friend.
Wow, you have
Come
a
on.
lot of friends.
No. The one I, the one there who,
Yeah, we know who called earlier.
That guy. Okay.
Joe knows.
Yeah.
Come on, Joe.
Yeah, we got it.
Who's...
We got it. We got it.
Yeah, isn't he a beaut?
What do you
anyway.
What do you think of the whole vaccine mask wearing, making everybody know that we're having to show or prove you've been vaccinated to buy groceries or to watch a movie or to go in and buy toilet paper in Lysol?
First of all, it's all bull. You know what? They got everybody scared. This Biden and this team. Actually, Biden isn't running the show anyway. It's Harris and everyone else. Who's kidding who?
Yeah. Joyce, and I'm not sure. I think Harris is the benefactor here. My personal feeling is I think Barack Obama still has an incredible amount of sway. And he's probably, if not the invisible hand, the predominant invisible hand involved here.
Thank you.
And President
Well,
Xi.
you know what? Thank you. You know what? Yes, Harris, Obama. Oh, thank you. You know what? Let's. I think most people that are smart know what the hell's going on. And Joel has no clue, like a lot of other people. And I'm glad that people give it to him, because even Peter Blue gave it to him.
Well,
and
I think that, I think Joe, he calls up with his valid opinion. Like everybody's opinion's valid, right? But it's like everything, everybody has one.
I know, but you know what? Let's not let him talk over you, because set him straight like other people do.
Yeah, no, Joyce, I think there really is a problem. I mean, you're hitting on kind of a fundamental thing thing that Joe and I have spoken about for a long time, as have other people. And that is, when you have these people like Joe Biden who have been in the government for 50 years, right? What makes people believe that the individuals who caused all these problems for the United States of America are going to be the same people who are now going to solve these problems after 50 years in government? And then it's even worse when you couple these people with people like Barack Obama, who are very much academics with no real world experience. So now you have an academic coupled with a person who's entrenched in the government. And as I've said on Joe's program before, when you think about Joe Biden being in the federal government for 50 years, the United States of America is only 245 years old. Let's round up to 250. 250-year-old country. This guy has been in the federal government for 20% of the time that the United States of America has been in existence. Just think about that. And if you're unhappy with many of the policies, be it Vietnam, be it oil crisis, be it other excursionary adventurism that we've taken around the world in the past 50 years, the last half a century, Joe Biden has been at the forefront of all of those mistakes. The hypocrisy. Go ahead.
Yep.
Go ahead, Joyce.
Yep. And you know what? If everyone knew the whole story, all right, with Hunter, the father, the brother, which wasn't coming out, it will, though. Now, I believe Joe Biden would be in jail.
Yeah, well,
if it weren't for him being elected to office, he may be sitting in the Scranton County Jail. That's true.
Well, the thing is, now it came out, 2 days ago in the news that Hunter was very much urging him to run and wanted him to run for president because he was thinking ahead and he wanted to make sure that the Justice Department wasn't going to look as hard as they should at this. And there's so much more to this laptop, and he finally did. In that interview earlier in the week, admit that it could have been his laptop, even though he's saying it could have been, Russian.
Well, anything's possible.
Anything's possible.
Sure. Well, the main media. Hello, here we go. Were they going to bring anything up like that? Nothing. It's all going to come out sooner or later. It will.
Yeah, absolutely.
And people.
Well. We don't know. Will it or will it? The problem is you've got not just Joe Biden as president, but you've got everybody around him who are going to ensure that he stays there till they don't want him there anymore. And
that's right.
So maybe it's not all going to come out, right? Because we know that the FBI covered up Hillary Clinton. They changed the word in the report so that it became a non-crime by changing one word.
Right. You can't even trust the FBI.
Extremely careless.
Yeah. So it's a lot going on there, Joyce. But thanks for calling. Anything else before we let you go?
You know what? Let me tell you, a lot of us miss Trump. Because we knew he was for the people.
Well, that's
for the people.
The memes out there, right? Where we're saying, "Hey, you miss me yet?" The old "miss me yet."
And you know what? My relatives, my friends, we all miss him.
Yeah.
And my husband rides around with his truck, and he's got everything on the back of the truck with his stickers. And a lot of people give him the horn. And they give him thumbs up.
I bet you I could probably pick your husband's vehicle out in the parking lot.
I bet you could too.
I think I could. Yeah.
Joyce, keep the faith. These things have a way. The pendulum will swing again in your direction.
And thanks for the call, Joyce. Always appreciated. But I think that we're going to see as long as states like Atlanta's, laws and so forth are stay in place and get in place. I can't imagine the House not going Republican in 2022. I think that we as a country, Jerry, we typically self-correct ourselves, and this is typical that either the opposite party loses, the party loses seats, or it goes to the other side. Right now, and I don't want the House, the Senate, and the White House, the House, and the Senate all controlled by one party, including all the Republicans. I think that we need this friction, and there needs to be some debate. So when we talk about eliminating the filibuster, that's a scary proposal.
Joe, I just want to jump in here for a minute, because when you talk about the House and what's going to happen in the midterms, which are only about 18 months away. I mean, this is pretty darn close by. You would think, when you look at this infrastructure spending bill with all the proposed tax increases, you would think that after 50 years of government, Joe Biden would understand that raising taxes is political suicide. Let's not forget that when Bill Clinton was elected in 1992, the first thing he did in 1993 was raise taxes. And it was a policy that damaged the U.S. economy, just like we're going to see right now, and cost Clinton the House and Senate in the 1994 midterms. In fact, it's interesting, Joe, not a single Republican in 1994 in the House, not a senator or a governor in 1994, and a couple of them were under federal indictments, by the way, in 1994.
Yeah.
Not a single Republican lost. Not one election was lost. That's what happened. So you think Joe Biden would learn from the lessons of history that this is going to be political suicide, what's going to happen with this infrastructure spending bill. So I agree with you.
Yeah. But I also think right now, Jerry, that they're plowing forward with whatever the end game is. All this crisis at the border, which could be stopped like flipping a light switch by just simply reinstating Trump's policies, because regardless of what you're trying to be told by the left and the media, they were actually working. They were, and we were the closest we had to a secure border in a long, long time. And the fact that they're ignoring it and they're letting this go on, and we now have this situation with now the sexual abuse allegations at the Texas facility, and of course we're back to the Orwellian verbiage game, right? Because they're not detention centers anymore; they're reception areas.
So, Joe, in your opening monologue, you spoke about the $60 million a week.
Yeah,
that it's costing.
$60+ million a week.
Right, and that's $60 million a week, Joe. That is to house, right, the illegal immigrants, the illegal migrants who have come into the United States. $60 million a week. So when you look at that, what is the real cost of spending $60 million a week?
And that's just the minors, by the way, Jerry.
That's just the minors.
Right.
Just the minors. So when you look at that, what's the real economic impact of doing that? It's not just the $60 million that you're spending on those minors. It's also the opportunity cost of what you could have done for America's children with that same $60 million a week. So when you look at the overall economic impact of a policy that spends $60 million a week on this nonsense that's easily preventable by just reinstituting Trump policies, the cost of this is enormous, and the impact on the kids that it's having here. What would $60 million a week do in your community for your children?
What would that do for the school systems? What would that do even for true infrastructure? I mean, the bridges and the roads, or even being able to put high-speed bandwidth everywhere in the country, including the rural areas, which would be a tremendous boost for those rural communities when it comes to healthcare and education. $60 million. So there's 16,000 migrant minors, and it's $3.1 billion annually. Now that's at this rate. Now the problem is those on the border are saying if something isn't done to change this, we're looking at 250,000 who are going to be intercepted coming in illegally. Now the question, and this is the part that we don't get a lot of discussion, that 172,000 people that we actually know of is probably, and it used to be 85%, right? When the Border Patrol was actually an enforcement agency, not a processing agency, it was accepted that we caught 85% of those crossing, meaning 15% we didn't catch. Now,
I don't know whose assumption that is, but just as a lay person looking at this from the outside, To assume that you're catching 85%
is
of the
incredible.
people, that is a remarkably high assumption to make.
Absolutely, I agree with that. I think they're too high. But now they're even saying that since it become more of a processing arm of the branch of government, that we're only catching 70%. So 172,000 is 70% of what number? So that means 30% are getting by and in. Meanwhile, we know that these immigrants are being given the orders to cross and turn themselves in to occupy the Border Patrol agents so that they can operate somewhere else on the border, meaning the cartels. Now, the cartels have gotten to the point, Jerry, where their money from the human trafficking has exceeded their drug money. So I was watching the news, and the rep down there the congressional rep was talking with a rancher, and that one area of the border, not the whole border, just on this one ranch where there's a gap in the wall, that the cartel's making around $14 million to $15 million a week in that one location. It's estimated overall border on the trafficking of these people who are paying, right? So you're talking $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 if you're from South America. We know, and I got static last weekend that because people who listen, sometimes those that listen to the show don't listen to any other news show other than CNN. But if you did do a little research, you would find that there is actually a price differential depending on where you're coming from. So if you're an Asian, it goes up to maybe $8,000 to $10,000 is what the coyotes are going to charge you to cross. And if you're from the Middle East, that even jumps up further. And we've caught these two Yemen gentlemen, right, who are they were both on the terrorist watch list and the do not fly list. And
it's so absurd when you listen to the spin that the White House puts on this, where they say, see, our border policies are working. We caught these two individuals from Yemen.
Yeah.
They caught these two individuals from Yemen. There are probably a multiple, 10, 20-fold number of people who got in without detection. That's just, it's unrealistic to think that these are the only two. Which means that there are a whole bunch of others who did come in.
But and before Biden became president and before this became a crisis, we've talked about it on this show because for the last several years, and this was a problem that Trump knew of and he was trying to address, is that the Border Patrol would find on a regular basis prayer beads and rugs, which are used in the Muslim faith, so knowing that there's not a lot of Latin American Muslims. I'm not saying there aren't any.
Right.
But it was at such a number, and then the intelligence from the Border Patrol said, no, actually, there is a good number of people from not the continent of South America who are making their way over to this hemisphere and then coming into the border.
Porous borders that are just south of us. And that's a real problem. And anybody who doesn't acknowledge that just has their head in the sand. There are porous borders south of us, and you're going to have some bad people who are going to take advantage of that to get closer to us.
Before we have to wrap, I wanted to actually bring up another topic. It's switching gears here a little bit, but it's all on the Biden administration, and it fits into the entire question as to what's the big end game and what's with this. And I think a lot of what this administration is pushing so fast and so hard is before the midterm elections, right, to get as much done, which translates to, for me, it translates to damage done. But now Biden is proposing this committee to study SCOTUS, the Supreme Court, about changing the numbers and packing it. There's no reason in the world to touch it other than the fact that he pissed off because President Trump was able to appoint 3 justices, Supreme Court justices, and nearly 200 other judges in the federal court system. And that's not his fault. That was the previous administration, Barack Obama, who failed to make those appointees. So bad on him.
Speaks to the genius of Trump.
Yeah, absolutely. And the court and then the Supreme Court is going to be part of that, whether he's this one-term president or not, will always be part of his legacy because it's lasting for generations. And that is, and this is what we're seeing, Jerry, across the board, whether we're talking about the court or even that Iowa situation, right, when Nancy Pelosi decided that she could unseat a certified Republican and put a Democrat in there. But that got too much backlash that they stopped that fight. And that's what we have to do. We have to keep the pressure on it here. But it seems to me anyway, Jerry, every time you look at something, whether it's the filibuster or whether it's the court, that the Democrats in power just want to change the rules to fit them instead of doing it the way it should be done. Your idea versus an idea. You debate it and people vote. That's the way it's supposed to work.
Seems to be a lot of opposition, though. I heard the other day, a couple of legal scholars coming out, and it seems like across the board there's a lot of opposition to this. Now, that doesn't mean that it's going to be stopped, but it does seem like there is some rational thinking going on about packing the court.
Yeah. And, packing the court is one thing. That's when, you're packing it with all one biases. Changing the numbers is a whole different thing. And changing the numbers just in order to put more of your political activists on there is so wrong. So I hope that the opposition is vocal and strong, because leave the court alone. 9 is a good number. Ruth Bader Ginsburg said it was a good number, right? Everybody, it's a great number. Leave it alone. Concentrate on the other branches of government right now.
Right.
So we have that issue going on. Surge in homicides in Portland, right? Going through the roof because city government won't increase. They defunded the police and they won't increase it. So what do you think is happening? But that's up across the board in the country. Of course, we got to remember, Jerry, that crime was down last year because everybody was inside. So there's you've got that X factor you got to figure into everything. But if you look at the bigger picture, when we see homicide up 130% in some of these cities, that's a big problem. And this defunding the police, whether it was the bad marketing, which we talked about before, that was just a horrible way or horrible terminology, because they tried to backtrack from that. And they said, well, it's not actually defunding. It's just reallocating the money and using it here and there.
More semantics.
Absolutely. We had, because we're running out of time here, but there was one more story. I don't know if you caught the white female postal worker who was brutally beaten in broad daylight in Flint, Michigan by several black women because of the delayed stimulus checks. They took it out on the postal worker because she didn't deliver the stimulus checks.
Don't shoot the messenger.
Yeah, I know, right? Anyway, but that's going to wrap up. Good. This Saturday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show went very quickly. Thank you, Jerry. I guess you helped with that.
It was great to join you again. Great show.
And I'll see you a week from Thursday, I think. And you'll be back next month. But join Jerry every weekday from 11 to noon for Making Money Last in Political Thursdays at 10 o'clock every Thursday, right here in AM 830 WCRN. Anything else you want to add?
No, just wishing everybody a great weekend. And thank you very much, Joe Mangiacotti. I'll be listening tomorrow morning when I'm not here to your show.
Absolutely. I know. Well, Nancy's away, but I know you get up, shower, dressed, and tune right in at 6 o'clock.
Sharp.
You got it. All right, folks, have a fantastic rest of the weekend. Enjoy it. I'm Joe Mangiacotti from the Box Drop Middlesex Mattress Outlet Studios. Have a fantastic day.